You guys were so afraid of being canceled. You went out and you screamed and you yelled about being canceled. It was coming from people who didn't agree with what you were saying and were speaking out about.
The internet is absolutely exploding over a shocking chain reaction of events that could completely reshape the power hierarchy of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it all begins with the earth-shattering fallout from Spider-Man: Brand New Day. For years, audiences had grown accustomed to a very different Bruce Banner, the calm, mild-mannered, glasses-wearing Professor Hulk who seemed to have finally conquered the war raging inside him. That transformation, born during Avengers Endgame, created a unique balance between Banner's brilliant intellect and the Hulk's overwhelming physical power. But that fragile balance may have finally been shattered. In Brand New Day, a brutal confrontation reportedly pushes Banner beyond his limits, causing the gamma control that kept his two personalities in check to fail. For the first time since Thanos brutally dominated him in the opening moments of Avengers Infinity War, the controlled Professor Hulk persona is seemingly stripped away, unleashing something far more dangerous: the raw, furious Hulk that Bruce Banner had spent years trying to suppress.
From where we came from.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget you to see this great character indie actor.
For the first time in nearly a decade, the cage finally broke, unleashing a raw, unrestrained, bloodthirsty, savage Hulk in a sequence that reportedly left audiences completely stunned. This was no longer the comedic, self-aware Professor Hulk fans had become accustomed to. This was a terrifying force of nature, setting up one of the biggest narrative chess pieces for the MCU's future. Marvel appears to be rebuilding the Hulk toward a more powerful, ferocious, comic-accurate version of the character just as the doors to a massive multiversal war are being thrown wide open. And that explosive evolution immediately raises one enormous question: where does a Hulk of this magnitude fit into the MCU's next chapter, especially with Avengers Doomsday looming on the horizon and Robert Downey Jr. making his monumental return as the terrifying Victor Von Doom? Marvel Studios is seemingly pulling no punches with Doomsday, positioning the film as a brutal, high-stakes collision centered around the psychological and physical threat of Doctor Doom. In Marvel Comics, Doom has never been just another villain who can be defeated with a few punches. He is a supreme intellect wielding dark magic, advanced technology, and an ego powerful enough to challenge cosmic entities such as the Beyonder and Galactus. From iconic storylines like Secret Wars to Doom's encounters with Thanos, he has consistently viewed heroes, villains, and even superhuman beings as pieces on a much larger chessboard, all serving his vision of absolute order. With RDJ stepping into that role, the conflict has the potential to become an intense psychological and devastatingly powerful battle of wills where traditional heroes could find themselves completely outmatched. And against this backdrop of impending multiversal chaos, behind-the-scenes whispers and unverified scooper reports have fueled speculation that Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is aggressively pushing for a major narrative foothold within the chaotic ensemble of Avengers Doomsday.
I mean, my first thought was, like, this is no joke, you know? And so it does break my heart. Like, I understand that on such a personal level, and it's a tragedy.
This creates a fascinating creative conflict over who deserves priority in a movie already struggling to balance the returning original Avengers, the Fantastic Four, and the massive X-Men roster. On one side is Deadpool, a character whose entire identity is built around fourth-wall breaks, meta-commentary, and chaotic comedic disruption. On the other is a newly re-energized Savage Hulk, who in the comics represents the ultimate unstoppable force, an apocalyptic powerhouse capable of smashing through armor that even gods would struggle to withstand. If the MCU is truly rebuilding Hulk as a terrifying force rather than a source of comedy, surrounding his comeback with Deadpool's non-stop sarcasm could risk undermining a character arc fans have been waiting years to see restored. Comic book fans know exactly what happens when Hulk is reduced to a background prop instead of being treated as a major narrative force. In iconic runs like Greg Pak's Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, the Green Goliath isn't simply strong. He is strategic, furious, and increasingly dangerous, with his power rising alongside his rage, a level of destruction that once terrified the Illuminati enough to exile him into space. And when the villain at the center of the story is Doctor Doom, a mastermind capable of manipulating the fate of entire realities, the stakes demand more than constant meta jokes. They demand characters who can carry that apocalyptic weight. The growing tension between Deadpool's desire for a major role in the Avengers story and Marvel's apparent need to restore the gravitas of foundational characters like Hulk and RDJ's Doctor Doom creates a potentially explosive creative tug-of-war. If the studio chooses endless cameos, self-referential humor, and fan service over the raw terror of an unleashed Hulk confronting an overwhelmingly powerful Doom, Marvel could risk repeating the very problem that has plagued some crossover events in the past. Too many characters competing for attention while the emotional weight of the story gets buried underneath the spectacle.
Hard time, and it's a very, very difficult time. There's no perfect candidate right now.
The brilliance of Marvel's handling of Bruce Banner in Brand New Day is that it effectively hits the reset button, reminding audiences why the Hulk was once considered the most terrifying creature on Earth. By forcing Banner to confront the monster within once again, the story opens the door to a much darker, higher-stakes payoff down the road, moving away from the sidelined and weakened version of the character that some fans had grown frustrated with. But as Avengers, Doomsday draws closer. The real battle may not be limited to the heroes facing Victor Von Doom on screen. Behind the scenes, an equally important creative struggle could be taking shape over screen time, character priority, and the overall tone of the movie. Whether Marvel ultimately embraces the terrifying, world-shaking potential of a resurrected Savage Hulk or leans heavily into Deadpool's undeniable box office appeal and comedic energy could determine whether this new era of the MCU feels like a bold return to its roots or collapses under the weight of excessive cameos and fan service. And as the studio moves deeper into this next chapter, industry analysts have increasingly pointed to the way Marvel manages legacy contracts, character importance, and star power as a major factor in determining which heroes ultimately dominate the spotlight.
We might be on complete ideological opposite ends of the world.
Back when characters like Iron Man, Captain America, and the Hulk were establishing the foundation of the shared universe, Marvel typically relied on multi-picture contracts that gave the studio significant control over appearances, cameos, and promotional obligations. But as the franchise expanded through phases 4 and 5 and moved toward phase 6, that model evolved, with major talent increasingly working under more flexible, project-by-project arrangements. That shift can give established stars greater leverage to push for stronger scripts, meaningful character arcs, and creative boundaries, while also allowing them to step away from massive crossover events when a project no longer aligns with their career plans or their vision for a character. When you add the enormous box office power and cultural influence of newer Hollywood heavyweights like Ryan Reynolds, who has played a major creative and producing role in the Deadpool franchise, it becomes easier to understand why both newer stars and longtime MCU veterans may want greater control over how their characters are portrayed. Social media sleuths regularly resurrect old interviews, behind-the-scenes photos, and playful interactions from previous non-Marvel collaborations, using them to build elaborate theories about supposed studio rivalries and secret power struggles. While these theories often transform harmless Hollywood friendships and jokes into dramatic corporate narratives, they reflect a genuine concern among fans. Whether beloved characters will receive the dramatic weight they deserve when dozens of heroes are competing for attention in the same crossover movie. That concern becomes even more important if Marvel is attempting to reposition the Hulk as a more serious, character-driven powerhouse, whether through grounded street-level stories or massive cosmic conflicts. The challenge is finding a way to give Bruce Banner and the Hulk meaningful emotional stakes while still allowing the wider MCU ensemble to function without turning every major moment into another competition for screen time. Team-ups and more focused storylines, rather than forcing the Hulk into an overcrowded multiversal battle royale, could actually be a blessing in disguise for the character and for the MCU's overall pacing. For years, fan communities have debated whether the transformation from the rage-fueled monster of the earlier Avengers films into the Professor Hulk persona ultimately weakened the character's core mythology, especially when his screen time was already competing with dozens of variants, cosmic entities, and mutant powerhouses. Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner doesn't need to become background wallpaper in an enormous crossover just to prove that he still matters. Giving the character targeted appearances where the story has room to breathe could allow Marvel to explore his emotional conflict, physical power, and complicated relationship with the Hulk without rushing through important character moments simply to satisfy fan service expectations. Ultimately, whether the online rumors of direct creative clashes and backstage pushback are completely accurate or merely amplified speculation from social media scoop hunters, they point toward a fascinating turning point in modern franchise filmmaking. Audiences are paying closer attention than ever to how actors, producers, writers, and studios negotiate their positions inside these massive billion-dollar cinematic universes. As Marvel Studios navigates the high-stakes road toward its next major cinematic event, the delicate balancing act between legacy heroes, incoming mutant powerhouses, and the competing creative priorities of Hollywood's biggest stars will continue fueling the pop culture conversation. Because in today's MCU, the battles happening behind closed doors in writers' rooms, production meetings, and contract negotiations can be almost as fascinating to fans as anything appearing on the silver screen.